So I wanted to come here, beautiful Dongpo Park here in Changzhou. It's a park that I consider the more beautiful park. It's a little park. It's nearby Hongmei Park, but it has a lot of really nice features to it. A lot of nice little fountains and little nooks. And I'll walk you around the park and let you see some of that. It's just a really nice park, beautiful. It's always less crowded too, for whatever reason. But I like coming here most of all. But I think it closes at night, so you can only come in here during the day. It's a little more peaceful also. There's a bird over here. Anyway, I wanted to talk about kind of the dating scene in China as I've experienced it, sort of as a reaction to the video that Serpent ZA and Lao 86 posted about the article, and their no bullshit reaction to that. I think that article was just kind of planted there to make Chinese girls appear more and more like fair-minded girls who are somewhat innocent and pure, when really, I cry bullshit on that entire sort of emphasis, because, most of the women I'm meeting here in Changzhou are just kind of extremely coy, almost to the point of being vulgar about it. And, are really sort of just aggressive about trying to get you to come to their establishments, and they'll do, every trick in the book, telling you they love you, telling you, they just work there as publicists and things like that, just complete utter bullshit, when really it's just a form of prostitution. How they skirt that is that they have, you pay the KTV and the KTV pays them. But, I've done everything in my power to try and get them to go on everything in my kindness and my persuasion. It's just to get them to go on dates with me, go to dinner, go to a movie, even like go for a day trip somewhere. And they just refuse to do so. But at the same time, they will, constantly, text me and say things like, "What are you doing right now?" And you always, of course, it's kind of a lead question, a baiting question to get you to think that, maybe they want to do something with me right now. And no, they don't want to do anything unless you come down to the KTV place and pay for them. And here's kind of an interesting aspect to that, working at the KTV, that the girls will tell you that they only get days off when they have their periods. So, once again, they're sort of confined to just work, and that's it. They can't do anything with you unless they have their period. It's a bit alarmingly deceitful. I don't know what to say. It's a bit alarmingly ridiculous. I also cried BS on sort of all this talk about Serpent ZA and Lao 86 saying, oh yeah, if you're relying on a girl in China, that's not the reason to be dating a girl in China. But that's bullshit, because if you're a man, you're relying on a girl for sex, and because what else are you going to do? Seriously, what else are you going to do? So yeah, you are just inherently, physiologically relying on a woman, A, to have a child, and B, to have sex, unless you want to be a homosexual, and even then your chances are about the same as with a girl, the homosexuals are playing the same sort of game with sexuality. They're just kind of more in tune with the way these sort of crass and sort of materialistic girls play it. I also want to say that it's complete bullshit that girls, like, Chinese girls aren't sexually motivated, in a lot of their interactions. It's definitely a tool. Once they become aware of it, they will use it to the best of their ability. Almost, and I saw this trend sort of starting to develop when I first got to China, when I started hearing girls say like, "Oh, my hero is like Paris Hilton," you're immediately sensing that they're picking up cues for the wrong people. The most sort of cynical sexualities out of the United States are the ones that they're sort of focusing on as role models. In terms of KTV and my experiences with KTV girls, I'll tell you a little bit about them. There was one girl who I was teaching at a college in Wuxi, and she was in my classes. She was never a very bright girl, but a very attractive one. And one day, and then she definitely picked up on that, because I was like, ooh, she's hot. But she definitely sort of could see that in me. And a lot of girls can see that, instinctively. It's the code of silence that they sort of exploit. So anyway, I lived off campus there, and one night I got a knock on my door, and I answered the door, and there she was, all in tears. And, I don't know how she got my address. I never gave it to her. But she was at my door, all in tears, and I said, well, what's the matter? Invited her in. And she's like, oh, her boyfriend, blah, blah, blah. She broke up, and she needed somebody to go out and have fun with. She just wanted to sing. And, of course, she knew I was a singer, and she knew, because I had brought that into the classroom frequently. And so I was like, all right, I can go do that with you, So we went out to the KTV, and it just happened to be a place that she works, apparently. And, we got a room to ourselves, and we just had a few beers. And we ended up kissing, a little bit of fondling. And then we called it a night. She went home on the bus, and I went back to my apartment. She said she felt better. And here's the kicker, though. The very next morning, I go down to the bus stop that I take to the school, and there's this big poster billet of her, and it is missing on the top, And I'm like, since last night, she just disappeared. And but anyway, I have to go. I have to go to the authorities on that one. That's something that is very serious concern. And I definitely know I'm definitely thinking I'm the last person who saw her. And so I went to the authorities, my school authorities, and told them what had happened, and they didn't have a problem with what had occurred, and understood I was just, I was coming forth with my concerns for her welfare, and, eventually they found her, but, that was just a bit ridiculous. And the other aspect about Chinese girls is there are certain girls that are just there to probe you. There are girls there, seriously, they're just there to see how big your dick is. There's girls that are just curious about that, and they will hook up with you just based on that, And Chinese girls are very, very sort of aggressive about being envied. They want to be envied. You'll see, that's why they post all these things about photos of them being rich and doing this and being courted around in cars, going on vacations and eating all kinds of, because they want to be envied, And and a lot of men here just want to be a part of that, and it's a quality in women that I find very disturbing and very sort of repulsive, like that want to be envied. And this is a problem because, China has refused religion, and those aspects of the human character are all those seven deadly sins that people kind of dismiss these days. Things like pride and envy and coventry. They don't. People try and say that's just the human condition these days, and they don't sort of understand that, what was progressive about that thinking and that enlightened thinking was that, those things lead to conflict. You're creating unnecessary conflict and disharmony in your society by pursuing those, by embracing those sins. But here it's like a virtue, it's a virtue of who you are, how much you're envied. So that's another thing I have to cry bullshit, like a lot of these girls just want envy, and even, and I would say every success here, every success story of a guy hooking up with a Chinese girl a lot of times it's just success and defeat in disguise, you know, on the man's part maybe, because they've given up some part of themselves to sort of to be to have that relationship. You know, that's something I struggle with myself, and I'm sure all men who are involved in relationships here that sometimes confront that in themselves. More power to those guys. You know, I wish them the best. I wish and I do believe there are. I do believe there are relationships here that are not that are true success stories. I just haven't found my own yet at this point. I have had some relationships that were worthwhile. Well, before I get to them, let me finish up with the other KTV girl experience I've had. There was a girl in Shanghai that I met on social media. We chatted on video for a while. She invited me out to come see her. We went out to see her, got off the subway, met her at the subway station where she lived, got in a tuk-tuk, went to a hotel, we made love. Then she said, let's go back to my house. I went back to her apartment, I guess, house/house, met her father. I met her little son. She said she was married to an American, an older American, even older than me. And she showed me pictures, which were all very incredulous, because the boy that her little boy, you know, was definitely Chinese, had a Chinese father. There was no genetic sort of evidence that it was that he was born of an Anglo-Saxon. But I guess she was insisting that it was that man's child. Anyways, I spent the day at her house there, her apartment. Her sister came over, her friends came over. They made dumplings. It was quite nice. She let me rest in her bed, take a nap, got up. She said, let's go out for a walk. Took a walk around. She said she wanted to take a look for furniture. Went to a little furniture shop. She knew the people there. They showed us a dining table. She wanted a dining table. It wasn't too bad, so I bought it for her. They had it delivered to her house. And then she said she wanted to go to KTV, the place she worked. And I said, no, I'm really too tired. I don't feel like doing that. It's just, to me, it's just a waste of money. It's ridiculous, you know. It's just, KTV is just pathetic, you know. Especially if you're a musician, it's almost insulting, and because, you know, that's like how you make your livelihood. And also, I grew up, you know, singing in my room, so I really don't understand why Chinese people, if you want to sing, just sing in your room, you know, for God's sake. But anyway, it's always this exorbitant priced waste of time for watered down booze and plates of fruit most of the time. And I didn't want to go, you know, and I was pretty adamant about that, and so she got really upset. And she took me back to the hotel, said, I want nothing more to do with you. She deleted me from all her social media accounts the last time I ever spoke to her. You know, that's how sort of serious they are about getting you to come to their establishments. You know, they'll go that far, you know, they'll take it that far. So all that stuff about, like, oh, you know, if a Chinese girl invites you to see her parents and stuff like that, that can also be just something they're just manipulating, you know. It's just something they're cultivating in a lot of people's minds as being a serious concern matter, and it's not always. And I would say even like this idea of Chinese family being so important is also untrue, because why are all these women cheating on their husbands then, you know? If this idea of family is so essential to China, how comes, you know, and I've had sex with a lot of women who were married here, you know. This was when, this was like a little before, like Tencent, before WeChat took off, and QQ was sort of the reigning champ, and you just put your profile on there, and you would get a lot of hits from strangers wanting to request to be friends, and you know, you would accept them and chat with them and see where it was going, and you could be as bold as you wanted with a lot of those women. You could just say, you know, let me see your tits, and they would do it. They would be all for it, and they'd be married, and then you could set up a date, and you could go out and see them. And I did some traveling that way in China. I'd usually go out and meet them, and then we would have sex, and then I would realize that this was not a person I was going to pursue a relationship with. And so I would, get on the train or plane or bus or whatever I took to get there to meet them, and not see them again. And very often we just would stop communicating with each other after that. That being said, I always went into those experiences hoping that they were going to be relationships, that I was going to meet the person that I wanted to marry, that I was going to meet a person that I was going to settle down with, that I was going to enjoy my time with, that I thought there was a lot of possibility to have a relationship with. But, you just don't know, especially in social media. You have to go out there and see them, because people just do not look the same. They just do not look the same when you meet them in person, and especially with a lot of the cosmetics and with, like I said, that want to be envied here. A lot of times they're a lot heavier than you'll think they are. A lot of times the girls are a little bit more chubby than I care for, and that's something I'm not interested. I'm not attracted to. So one more reason I don't pursue a relationship after meeting them. It's always very difficult to me to find people to date in the city that I live, though, which is very weird. I here in Changzhou, once again, I'm having a lot of trouble finding a girl to date. And if you go into nightclubs, I guarantee you're getting caught up in just that system, So I don't go to nightclubs, and so I try and ask girls that I work with. I've dated a colleague before, and that was at the very least, a very sort of, conventional, comforting. Comforting is a bad word, especially in terms of Asian understanding of that word, and the place how it takes the aspect of war, where that term finds its more notorious sort of ignominy. But it was a relation that I would consider very normal. We would go to movies, we'd go out to dinner. But I never got the impression she was very, very sort of interested in me, or she didn't see the possibility that I wanted to see in our relationship. And I found that to be true when I left. I left Nanjing. This was my colleague in Nanjing, and I left Nanjing, and maybe a month later she got married to somebody else. That being said, when I came back here, we made a point to see each other again. We went out and had a meal, and it was nice to see her again, and I wish her the best. She's a good person, so that's good. Another successful relationship I had with a woman who was a professor at Shanghai Normal University. I met her through her nephew. I was teaching her nephew in the city where she was born. So she had come home from Shanghai for the holidays, and her nephew was having a class, and she was there to pick him up. And I went over and introduced myself, said hello. I said she was a very attractive lady, and I was wondering if she would like to go out to dinner, or if I could take her out to dinner sometime, or if we could chat some more. And she agreed to it, and we had a really nice relationship. The only problem was, as it progressed, I realized I was getting myself, further and further into a relationship where I was not going to be able to, have children with her. She was older. She had a child of her own who was in college at that point, and I just realized, because of her age and the way and the things we had discussed, that she wasn't really going to be interested in having another child with me, and that was something that I was looking for in a relationship. So I decided to end that relationship. Though we are still on friendly terms, we still talk from time to time. I brought her some books from the United States this time. This time back when I returned to China this year, I bought her some books and we chatted a bit. But I guess we both have an understanding that what I'm looking for in a relationship is not something that she's going to be able to provide me. It's very frustrating when you start to add, when you put all these pieces together and you start to see, maybe you start to analyze them and you start to see, like, man, like, people are trying to, cut you out of the breeding. They're trying to cut you out of the breeding, basically. And it's all very, very sort of very disturbing. What else I was talking about? Relationships. I've also dated a lot of girls that we just went to a movie or two or a dinner, and after that we didn't, it didn't take off. So I've had those experiences too, which I consider your common dating experience. You invite somebody out and maybe you chat a little bit, go to a movie, and you see if there's anything there, some kind of spark or some kind of something that you want to pursue. Anyway, so I just wanted to come here and discuss that a little bit. Dating in China. Are Chinese girls easy? I don't know them. I would say no. They're not easy. The women I have found easy are the ones that are either want you to pay for sex on some level, or whether it be money or on another level, or the women who are cheating on their husbands, basically. And that's another aspect of that I understood very quickly, was that, there's a lot of unhappy marriages out there, and so once again, that idea of family being the holy grail of China is garbage. You'll find they're very dysfunctional. It's just they don't talk about it, and they keep it quiet, and as much as they can. But this thing about Chinese families is a lot of times they marry very young. They understand they got to have children right away, and then their duty is done. It's like they've done their duty to China, or done their duty to marriage, and then they're kind of free to do what they want. And life is short. So if a foreigner, they get a chance to fool around with a foreigner or have sex with a foreigner, like, I lived once, why not? And there's nothing here that is going to stop me. And that's another bullshit thing about these girls who, that's another bullshit about this sort of nationalism in China, and that conversation has entered more and more relationships with foreigners these days too, especially America with the trade war going on. They're all trying to make it seem like they are kind of a superior breed on some level. They're just like everybody else in the world. They'll throw their nation under the bus the first sign of trouble, if it's their skin or their neighbor, or if it's a lot of corrupt people that they realize that built up that idea. If they go under the bus, it's better them than me kind of deal. And it's the same with the corrupt people. They know there's a lot of good people here that they would throw under the bus, rather than have their own skins go under it. So you see that everywhere, but it's pretty clearly written in Chinese history, that's for sure. But that sense of nationalism now will enter a lot of conversations, and a lot of the girls think you inherently despise them because of that. But it's something they're fostering, and probing at the same time. Probing, that's something you get a lot of here. It's just kind of like probing relationships to see how you react to certain aspects of them and China. So anyway, I think that's pretty good for now. Maybe I'll discuss this more in some upcoming videos. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Hopefully I'll have a success story to share with you. And a little company, a little bit, there's not just all this solo adventure. But I'm going to get up and take a walk around the park and then show you around a little bit more. All right. Talk to you later. You guys stay cool. All right.